Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching my Speculative class guide series for Larian Studios' upcoming Baldur's Gate 3. As noted, because Baldur's Gate 3 is not out yet and we don't know everything, this video is speculative. This is based off the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition ruleset, which Larian has said they're going to base their own ruleset off as closely as practical, so I feel pretty confident using it as a baseline for these videos. If you're unaware of any of the basic concepts around D&D or Baldur's Gate more generally, I have a tutorial kind of video about the basics of D&D that you can find right here, or in the description. But without further ado, today we're going to take a look at... The Paladin is a knight of honour, pledging themselves not necessarily to a specific god, but to a set of ideals that they swear to live by. As long as they're living by these ideals, they're granted divine power as recompense for their devotion. As always, we'll start with the inherent features of the Paladin. Starting with the hit dice, the Paladin has a 1d10 per Paladin level for hit dice, which means at first level they have 10 hit points plus their constitution modifier, and at all higher levels, either you can roll a d10 or you can take the average of 6 plus your constitution modifier, and that will be added per Paladin level above first. As far as proficiencies go, they have proficiency in all armor and shields. As far as weapons, they have proficiency in everything, all simple, all martial. They have no tool proficiencies. Saving throws, wisdom and charisma are their proficient ones, and they get to choose 2 skills from either athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, and religion. Starting at level 1 when you choose this class, you gain the Divine Sensibility. Your strong sense of good versus evil allows you to detect such cosmic forces. As an action, you can activate this sense, and for the turn, you know the location of any fiend, celestial, or undead, which is to say demon or devil, angel, or undead is relatively self-explanatory, within 60 feet of you. You can also tell if any land in that radius is either consecrated or desecrated. For those unaware, consecrated is like a holy blessing, desecrated is like kind of an unholy curse on each area. You can use this feature 1 plus your charisma modifier times per long rest. So if you have a charisma modifier of 2, you can use it 3 times before you have to take a long rest before you can use it again. Also at level 1, you gain Lay on Hands. Once per long rest, you have a pool of divine healing equal to 5 times your Paladin level. This means that as an action, you can touch a creature and heal them any amount you wish from that pool of healing. Alternatively, you can spend 5 of those points to remove either poison or a disease. For example, a level 3 Paladin has 15 points of healing, because 5 times 3 is 15. You can either heal all 15 into one person, or you could do 14 into your friend and 1 into themselves, or they could do 8 into themselves, expend 5 to cure a comrade of poison, and then leave 2 for later. Any combination they want, they can do. It's a very versatile healing because you can do very specific healing amounts, which you can't really do with any other healing. Most other healing is done by rolling a dice, whereas Lay on Hands you can actually choose how much you put into somebody. At level 2, you gain a fighting style. I've gone over all of these before in the fighter class video, however they're up on screen now if you want to pause and read through each of them. You essentially get to choose one of these when you reach level 2 as a paladin. Also at level 2, you gain access to the ability to cast spells, in a very similar way to the cleric, which is to say you have a prepared list of spells. So each day you prepare up to your charisma modifier plus half your paladin level, rounded down, of spells. So that's somewhat wordy when it's not written down in front of you. Effectively, if you have a 3 charisma modifier and you're a level 2 paladin, you would add 4 is the amount you could prepare, because you have your 3 on your charisma modifier and half your paladin level is 1. So you get that many spells that you can prepare from the paladin list, and you can do that once per long rest. So every time you have a long rest, you can prepare a list of spells. They're the spells you can use for the rest of the day, effectively. You have a number of spell slots based on what level you are, as seen on the following class table. I'll have it up now, I've probably already had it up. And your charisma is the ability score that you use when you're spellcasting. Once again, this is somewhat difficult to grasp unless you're actually playing it from my experience, so if you have any questions, please ask them in the comment section, I'll do my best to answer all of them. Additionally, at level 2, you gain Divine Smite. This allows you to expend one of your spell slots to imbue your melee weapon with divine energy. This deals an additional 1d8 per level of the spell slot. It's amazing. I love the burst damage you can do with this. It's like the pass and parcel of the Paladin, in my opinion. Just doing this massive Divine Smite burst of damage is really where they stand as far as I'm concerned. Mainly due to the fact that you can decide to use this feature after you hit an enemy, which means you never waste it. So you swing, if you miss the enemy, you don't use the spell slot. If you swing and you do hit the enemy, okay, I'm going to do Divine Smite and do the extra damage. Also of note is that if you are attacking a fiend or an undead, you do an additional d8 of damage. It's really quite good. You do a lot of damage with this in a very short amount of time. From level 3 onwards, you become immune to all disease. This is a rather boring ability, but it's also a rather useful one. Additionally, at level 3 you gain your subclass. This is the point at which you take your Sacred Oath, which is to say your tenets as a paladin, the true path you follow, you get at level 3. The player's handbook has 3 different choices. In this video I'm also going to go over a 4th optional variant from the Dungeons Master's Guide, because I feel like it's pretty likely going to be present in Baldur's Gate 3. As always, I'll go over these a bit later after I go through the main class abilities, but I'm going to add an additional one that isn't confirmed, but is probable in my opinion. So level 4, you get an ability score improvement or a feat, as always with all classes. You get another one of these at level 8. Moving on to level 5, you gain the extra attack feature, so whenever you take the attack action, you can instead attack twice rather than once. It's a fantastic ability for all of the martial classes, really good. Then level 6, the very presence of a paladin can magically embolden and safeguard their allies. At level 6, the paladin gets an aura of protection. Whenever you or an ally within 10 feet of you makes a saving throw of any kind, they get a bonus to that of the Paladin's Charisma modifier. As long as the Paladin's conscious, this aura is always active. So if you have one of your party members trying to jump across a gap, and your Paladin is standing kinda close to them, they get an additional bonus on the saving throw for making that jump. It's really cool. It's the idea that kind of just the presence of the Paladin gives them these kind of powers. And then finally, at level 10, your Paladin gets an additional aura, this time an aura of courage. The Paladin and any ally within 10 feet of them cannot be frightened from any source, magic or mundane. Really cool, it just means that if you're standing near the Paladin, and the Paladin himself is always like that, you're just immune to fear. Very cool. Next, we'll move on to the subclasses for the Paladin, or the Sacred Oaths as they're called. There are a few things we should go over first that cover like all of the Sacred Oaths. First of all, whatever one you choose gives you an additional list of spells. These spells are always prepared, so as long as you have the spell slot for them, you can cast them at any time. And all of the spells are listed on the screen now, so you can sort of pause and go through them if you want. As I said before, there are 4 variants I have up now: the Oath of Devotion, Oath of Ancients, Oath of Vengeance, and finally the Oathbreaker, which is the one from the DMG and is not confirmed, but I think is likely going to be there. And if it's not in there, I think they're going to have something similar to it. All of the oaths also get options for their channel divinity, which can be used once before needing a rest to replenish it. Either a short or a long rest will work, but you get these channel divinity abilities, which are essentially just kind of divine abilities. We'll go over what they are specifically when we go through each class. Each oath also has a set of tenets that they have to abide by to actually gain their divine power. Up now are the tenets of each of the oaths. You can pause to go through them. If you break these tenets repeatedly or on purpose, you will become an Oathbreaker Paladin, again assuming that they're in the game. So first off, we have the Oath of Devotion. This is the most stereotypical paladin in my mind. They're all about kind of truth, justice, and the American way. No, that's Superman. Close enough. But in all seriousness, the Oath of Devotion is the most quote-unquote good of all the subclasses. When you choose this class at level 2, your channel divinity options are Sacred Weapon. As an action, you can imbue one weapon you are holding with positive energy for 1 minute, which is 10 combat rounds. This makes your weapon glow with a fairly bright light, allowing vision up to 40 feet away in complete darkness. It also does more damage while sacrosanct, at a value of your charisma modifier, so if you have a charisma modifier of 2, any damage you do is increased by 2. Additionally, if your weapon is not magical, it is so while it's sacrosanct, which is, again, I've gone over this a few times, but a magic weapon will just go through things that have kind of mundane resistances. So if things are resistant to bludgeoning damage on a mace, for instance, and your mace is magical, it doesn't matter, it'll go straight through. You may also choose to use your channel divinity to turn the unholy. Each fiend and undead you can see or that can hear you and is within 30 feet must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails it, it's turned for 1 minute or if it takes damage. While turned, a creature cannot do anything except try and run away from you as fast as possible. They can't use reactions and they can only use their dash action on their turn unless they're incapable of moving, in which case they can take the dodge action instead. And at level 7, as an Oath of Devotion Paladin, you get the Aura of Devotion. This prevents you or any allies around you within 10 feet from being charmed by any source. But that's everything for the Oath of Devotion. Up next is the Oath of the Ancients. Paladins of the Oath of the Ancients are warriors who adore the light and the life-giving things of the world. They are often associated with nature and are similar in this aspect to druids. Indeed, a lot of the spells they gain when they choose this subclass are directly from the druid spell list. At level 3, when you choose this class, you get 2 channel divinity options. Firstly, there is Nature's Wrath. As an action, you can use your channel divinity to summon spectral vines to ensnare an enemy within 10 feet of you, and it restrains them if they fail their saving throw. It's either a strength or a dexterity saving throw to ensnare the creature. They get to choose which one they use. Effectively, they can just pick their higher one. A restrained creature cannot move, all of their attacks have disadvantage, all attacks against them have advantage, and they have a disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. At the end of each of their turn, the restrained creature can attempt to break it by making another saving throw. Their other choice for Channel Divinity is Turn the Faithless. This is much the same as the Paladin of Devotion, however, instead of Undead and Fiends, the Oath of Ancients Paladin turns Fae and Fiends. So rather than undead, they turn Fae. And Fae are like fairies and things from the Feywild, so fairies, nymphs, that kind of thing. At level 7, as an Oath of Ancients Paladin, you gain Aura of Warding. One of the best auras, in my opinion. It's fantastic. You and all allies within 10 feet of you gain resistance to damage from all spells, halving the damage of all incoming damaging magic. It's insane. You just have resistance to magic as long as you're next to this paladin. And this paladin just always has resistance to magic. It's kind of ridiculous. That's it. So up next is the Oath of Vengeance Paladin. Those that choose the path of vengeance focus less on preserving the good and more on punishing the evil. The first Channel Divinity option you get is Abjure Enemy. This allows you to, as an action, force an enemy to make a wisdom saving throw. Fiends and undead have disadvantage on this check. On a failed save, the creature is not only frightened, but they cannot move for 1 minute, or until they take damage. If it succeeds on the saving throw, the creature isn't frightened, but its speed is halved. So this, even if they succeed in their saving throw, it's still a debuff to them. It's kind of amazing. Secondly, you gain Vow of Enmity. As a bonus action, you can confer a creature within 10 feet of you with your vow. Doing so gives you advantage on all attacks against that target for 1 minute or until they fall to 0 hit points. So essentially you can just choose a target and say, I'm gonna kill you, and run after it and just keep hitting it really hard and all the time because you have advantage on every attack against it until it falls unconscious or dies. At 7th level, you gain Relentless Avenger. Whenever you hit an attack of opportunity, as part of the same reaction, you can move up to half your speed, without incurring any opportunity attacks against yourself. So effectively, most enemies can't really run away from you, as when you hit them when they try and run away with your opportunity attack, you can chase them down in their turn. It's kind of great, you can just always advance on your enemy. But that's everything for the Oath of Vengeance. So finally we have my Speculation subclass of the Oathbreaker. Again, this oath isn't yet confirmed, but I'm fairly confident they'll have it in there, or at least something akin to it in Baldur's Gate 3. An Oathbreaker, as the name might suggest, is a paladin that has forsaken their vows and fallen to darkness. Their Channel Divinity options are Control Undead. As an action, you force an undead creature within 30 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature must obey your commands for the next 24 hours. Particularly strong undead compared to the paladin are immune to this effect. The higher level you are, the more powerful undead can be controlled. Essentially, for people who want kind of the nitty-gritty of the mechanics, this is a 1-to-1 for character level versus challenge rating. So if you're level 3 as an Oathbreaker Paladin, then you can only control undead of up to challenge rating 3, which is actually pretty high. I mean, challenge rating doesn't go super high compared to level for undead creatures generally, so you can control most undead you're going to be running into. The second Channel Divinity options is Dreadful Aspect. The Oathbreaker kind of screams out an emotional cry of rage, and all creatures of the Paladin's choice within 30 feet have to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, they're frightened for 1 minute. A creature who is frightened by this effect can only attempt the save if they end their turn further than 30 feet away from the Oathbreaker. So effectively, they can't break this frightened effect and if they're close to the Paladin. If they're close to the Paladin after he's done this, they're just frightened until they can get away from him. Quite a powerful frighten effect. And at level 7, the Paladin gets Aura of Hate. The Oathbreaker and all fiends or undead within 10 feet of them gain a bonus to melee weapon damage equal to the Paladin's Charisma modifier. So essentially the Paladin and any fiend or undead near them does an additional Charisma modifier amount of damage. This is interesting. The actual way that it's written in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Oathbreaker is kind of designed to be an NPC rather than a player character. So this one is less relevant because how often are you going to be surrounded by fiends or undead that are going to be on your side? I guess it kind of links in with Control Undead, so you can control undead, and then as long as the undead is near you, it's getting additional damage because of your aura, but it's less powerful than most of the other auras in my opinion. Having said that, it does make you, yourself as a paladin, just do more damage, so that's also quite nice. But that's it for all the paladin subclasses. Now onto my advice/recommendations for building a paladin in Baldur's Gate 3. First off, Charisma is your primary stat for all of your magical and divine abilities, so you want that fairly high. Also, probably strength or dexterity, depending on what weapon you wish to wield. Paladins are first and foremost melee fighters, since Divine Smite is specific to a melee weapon. And honestly, it's one of the best abilities that the Paladin has in my opinion. Divine Smite is amazing. So ranged weaponry isn't really recommended for a Paladin. Of course, you could probably make one work, it simply isn't optimal. As for choices in race, it's hard to pass up Dragonborn, assuming they're an available race in Baldur's Gate 3, I assume they will be, as they give a +2 to strength and a +1 in charisma. Similarly, Drow give a +2 to dexterity and a +1 to charisma. So depending on what weapon you want to use, Dragonborn and Drow both make a pretty good choice. Half-elves also gain a +2 to charisma, so that's also a thing, as do tieflings. And depending on the sub-race available for tieflings, they could be really great matches here. I'm thinking specifically of the Zariel and the Glacier sub-race of tiefling, because they give a +1 to strength and +1 to dex, respectively. All in all, the point I'm making is that there's very good variety of choice when it comes to an optimal race for a Paladin. But that wraps it up, I think. So, if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye guys.